my name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. It's my great pleasure to be speaking with singer Chris Clemence. How are you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me, man.
And I'm kind of looking forward to talking to you today because I got the latest press release that you put out, and I was really interested in reading it, that you're going to be releasing your latest solo single called Revolution. I believe it's August 25th that comes out. And in that press release, it said basically, kind of called out like Trent Reznor and Bruce Springsteen for the simple fact that they kind of complain about President Trump and stuff. And you're like, instead of just complaining about what's going on, do something. And kind of what you're doing is you're going to be releasing the song Revolution, and you've got your own foundation. From what I understand, you're going to be donating all the funds you make from the single. So you want to talk a little bit about the single and your decision to do this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wrote the song Revolution. It's kind of, in a dark time right now where there's so many problems going on, so many angry people who are so upset about so many issues. I thought it was time that, someone really needs to stand up and do something for positive change. Like you were saying earlier, calling out those guys, I love those guys. They're all great musicians. I admire them. But they're complaining about all these problems, but they're not doing anything to correct it or help make it better. So I'm saying, why don't you put together a charity or a benefit concert or something like that? So what I did is I organized my own foundation called the Clemence Foundation. My new single, Revolution, featuring D.H. Pellegro from Dead Kennedy, is coming out on the 25th. And when you donate to my charity, which benefits these three areas, you'll be gifted a free download of Revolution sent directly to you.
Wow. And this is really cool because, number one, Chris, I've always been one to believe that, music is something that is really powerful. It has the power to really bring people together and unite people. And I think the message, behind your single is really, really strong because, I'm all for free speech and everything. But, I mean, if you look at, for example, what happened in Virginia this last week and people tearing down statues and stuff, I mean, I'm all for free speech, but I don't necessarily agree with, people destroying property and hurting other people and that.
No, definitely not, man. I'm right with you there. I don't think violence or any destructive action is ever the answer to anything. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're all in this country together. No matter, this is beyond political parties. This isn't about Republicans. This isn't about Democrats. This is about us as people being good to each other. And I think people kind of, hide behind their party, whichever side of the fence they like to be on, and they cling to so hard to that, but then they lose sight of, well, are you really being a decent person or like supporting something? Like, why would you back someone or something that makes a bunch of other people feel terrible?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. So, like I said, with this, it's not really about, Trump, in my opinion, he's just like a figurehead epitome for all this hate and bad stuff going on. But it's really not just him. It's beyond that. And if we can all kind of band together and, give more change and the change that we want to see, we're going to have a lot, more peace and a lot better of a country that we want to see.
Yeah, but I think what's great about, too, what you're doing is, I'll give you an example. Like you said, Donald Trump, no matter what side of the fence you're on, he's kind of become everybody's punching bag. And I'll give you a good example of what I'm talking about. I mean, for example, people, they feel the freedom to call the man a racist or whatever. And when I was growing up, there was something called libel, where if you're gonna label somebody something, you better have the proof to back it up. And a lot of people, for example, call the man a racist just because, for the simple fact that maybe he doesn't have the same opinion as them. For example, like what you're doing is great because you're putting out a new single, you're raising funds, and then you have somebody like Madonna, for example, that took part in a protest earlier this year, and she goes to the mic and says, "I've had dreams about blowing up the White House." I mean, that gives people, crazy ideas. Okay, well, I'm a Madonna fan, and she thinks that. Maybe I should go blow up the White House. And not saying that would be Madonna's fault or anything, but, when you're a celebrity like her, and you got that level fame, with that kind of fame comes a small part of responsibility when you make public speeches,
Totally. I mean, Yeah, I don't condone that either. Like, I'm not saying anyone by any means should attack Donald Trump or attack the White House. That makes you no better than people who committed the terror attacks in Charlottesville or anyone else. It makes you a terrible person. But what I'm trying to do with Revolution is not be violent or destructive at all, but quite the opposite, actually. And it's like, well, you know, let's benefit, you know, education and healthcare and equal rights. You know, I feel like with education, you know, especially so many programs are being cut now due to funding you know, moving funds. It's like, and a lot of that, you know, if kids were better educated, they'd make better decisions for a better future.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with kind of like what you're saying with the attitude of, you know, don't just complain about, you know, the state of the world. If, you know, if you think there's something wrong, you know, do your part to fix it. I mean, you know, just because you're against President Trump, you know, and you want to call him a racist or whatever, that doesn't give you, you know, a right to, you know, incite violence towards him, doesn't give you a right to go out there and destroy property, because no matter what your views are, that does not give you a right to go out, you know, and destroy public property. You know, it makes you look, if anything, just like, you know, a jerk or anything. Just, you know, you don't have a right to go destroy somebody else's property is what I'm saying, just because you have a certain political view.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even if you are a Republican, I hope to have your, you know, support in this campaign, because if you really look at what it's about, education, healthcare, and equal rights, it's all good, positive things that I think us as humans and people and Americans really should stand behind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like you. I'm not necessarily. I don't really think, you know, it's about really necessarily the right or the left. And what I mean by that is certain things are just right and certain things are just wrong. I mean, again, I think if somebody's a Democrat or a Republican, whatever the case may be, I don't think anyone has more of a right than the other to go out and destroy property, you know. And there's a certain hypocrisy depending on, you know, what side you're on. People think that gives you the right to do whatever. I mean, you know, for example, going to rob a store, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. You know, you steal somebody's money, you break into their, you know, private business, you know, you hold them up. I would expect if I did something like that I'd go to jail, no matter, you know, what side of the fence I was on.
Of course, man. I mean, you know, people who riot and, you know, protest angrily, well, I can understand someone's, you know, blind rage in that moment and why they'd be that angry. It's never the answer, and it never has a positive outcome. You're just, you know, proving other people's view or point who think that you're wrong, and it's like, oh, see, look, they're an animal. They went out and did this. It's like, no, that is never the answer. You know, if you want positive change about it, you know, voice your opinions on it, talk to your elected officials, demand change, donate to charities. Like, there's better ways to go about it.
And see, that's what's cool about what you're doing, Chris, is because simple fact, you are educate people, and I've always felt that, you know, the best songs, you know, some of the songs I really enjoy are songs that are based on, you know, true events, things that have actually taken place in the world. And you know, this is something you obviously believe strongly in. And you know, while we're just sitting here talking about one particular song, Revolution, you know, just sitting here doing this interview today, we're kind of bringing awareness to this. People will go now and check out your song, and when they do so, the funds that you raise off of this one song is going to go to be helping, you know, other people that, you know, need to be educated and that.
Definitely, man. And, you know, it's like you were saying before, you know, writing music about, you know, things that are going on currently. I just received a message the other day from someone who, I guess, had, you know, seen one of the recent articles, and, you know, it's not like a heated, angry message, and they're saying, I guess they were already a fan of my music before, but now that I've kind of taken the stance of Revolution, they were upset. And they were like, you're here to entertain me, like, stick to writing music about, you know, insignificant things. And I responded saying, you know, first of all, if you were educated, you would have read my campaign and, you know, seen what it was for. But second of all, true musicians and artists, we don't write about insignificant things. We write about things that affect us, whether it's love or hate or, you know, the current state of affairs. And, you know, right now, what's going on in the world is something that not only affects me, but you, everybody.
Yeah.
It's such a current, relevant thing. How could you not write about
it? And see, something like that also just goes to show you that, I mean, there's a lot of hypocrisy out there for, a lot of people want to shut down free speech, and they're like, anybody that has a different opinion on what we don't want them kind of our campus. We'll speak over them. We'll
total fascism.
We'll create a riot. And I think, especially as an artist, you have every right to write whatever you want about, when you're writing songs. I mean, because for no other reason, you being the artist, that when you go in to record that song, you're going to have a much easier time recording it if it's something that you have experienced or you truly believe in, And the thing is, if this particular person doesn't like your music, you know what? They don't have to buy the song. But you have every right to, especially, for example, on your Facebook page, you have every right to post whatever you want up there, and people have a choice to agree with it, but they don't need to, go overboard and say, you're a Nazi or whatever because I don't agree with your view. That's just crazy,
Totally.
Yeah. And now, you're always been an artist that I kind of really could get behind because you're not like most artists in the sense that last time I talked to you, for example, Chris, we were talking about your latest single at the time was a sports anthem. So, every time you come out with a song, it's a different type of song. It's not doesn't necessarily sound like the what you released previously. And I dig that as an artist, and as a music fan, that when I go buy somebody's music, that everything they do does not necessarily sound the same.
Oh, thank you, man. Well, yeah, I try to keep evolving and changing as an artist, and that's what keeps it exciting for me, too. It's like, I don't try to get caught up in, I have to sound like this or this one sound, featuring different people on my songs, different musicians, different vocalists. So it almost does sound like a different band every time, and it might be for a different cause, or the song might have a different message, but it keeps it exciting and cool, and the people that follow and stick with it, I really appreciate all the support.
And part of being a solo artist, that you kind of have that right to do so, whereas maybe if you weren't a band that was a little more established and been around a little longer, a lot of times bands don't want to kind of go outside the box, but that's part of being a solo artist. And now on that note, I understand Revolution is initially going to be just available as a digital download, but I was curious if you're working towards like a full-length CD, or is there any chance that this will eventually be put on a full-length album?
Yes, actually, this is the prelude to a new record, solo record that's coming out. I wanted to start with the single and get it out as soon as possible, because I feel like, with the state of affairs right now and everything going on, it's like this needs to happen now. Like we can't wait any longer. The rest of my records, going to be coming out pretty soon. I have so many new songs, man, that I'm so excited about. But this one definitely, it hits the mark for me, like how I'm feeling right now and what's going on, and if I can help as many people as I can from it, that'd be great. Just try to make the world a little bit better, even if it's in some small way.
Yeah, and I really love the message, behind Revolution, kind of basically, which is, just don't just complain, do something. With that message, I was curious, have you ever given any thought to like doing any public speaking, like where you might go and perform, a couple of your tunes, and then, kind of talk about, the message behind the song and take answers from people, questions and answers? That would be kind of cool thing.
Funny you say that, because I'm doing that this Thursday. There's a festival in Long Island called Alive After 5.
Wow. How cool is that?
On the main stage. I'm going to have a booth set up where people can come by and donate, and also pick up one of the T-shirts.
Oh, wow.
All the donations, like I said, benefit my foundation and, education, healthcare, and equal rights. So, yeah, man, if anyone is in Long Island in Patchogue this Thursday, definitely come say, come say hello and hang out. And
as far as doing any live performing, will you be doing more of that once the rest of the album is completed?
Yeah, I'm actually going to probably be doing some one-off shows here or there. I'm going to be posting those up on my website, chrisclemence.com. right now, I'm just been focusing on, finishing up this record and getting out Revolution, but definitely going to be doing some live solo shows. And I'm going to be, having different surprise guests hop up on stage for those shows. So it'll be kind of an exciting blend of musicians that, some of them that you've heard on my tracks, some of them that are new, some that are very well known, others that are, I really look up to as musicians. So it'll be a cool little mix.
And when you typically perform live, I was curious, do you have like a set group of musicians that typically tour with you, or is that kind of what you typically do? You get like different musicians depending what city you're playing?
Yeah, exactly. As a solo artist, I kind of switch it up between the musicians that I work with. Obviously when I was in my bands, we had our set lineup.
Yeah.
We'd go out and do that. But I don't know, man. I kind of like switching it up and keeping it fresh and exciting. And, maybe having like, one guitar player who played on this one might not necessarily play on the next one. It keeps the sound different and cool.
Yeah, and I think too another cool thing like about that would be, when you go to write songs with different people, you bring different influences into it, and it helps to have like a different sound, like you were saying earlier.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah.
The guys I worked with on this one, I had like an all-star team on this. I worked with this guy, Chet Tolliver, out of LA. He's a great guitar player, great record producer. So we co-wrote it and produced it together. And then obviously, I had DH on the vocals. He's just like a punk legend. He's got this great, amazing voice, and he's got the right attitude for the drive of the song. And then I was super lucky too. I had Robin Diaz from Daughtry and Candlebox play drums on it.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it was kind of like a little all-star lineup of guys to work with, and
that's cool.
They all just crushed it, and I'm just really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I was curious, like when you said you're currently working on your latest solo album, full-length solo album now. When you typically go in and write in studio, do you typically have everything already written, or do you kind of go in the studio and kind of write the songs as you're recording them?
Well, it depends. I mean, when I'm going to track for the final record, it's already, written, and I go in and everything's kind of methodical and planned out. But when I do writing, I do write in my own studio as well.
Okay.
And, record demos and stuff and tweak everything. And once it's all perfect and ready to go, then we'll go in and do it for real. And
then on the Revolution, you mentioned you had the guy from the Dead Kennedys. Now, I was curious, is he just somebody you've known over the years, or were you a Dead Kennedys fan when you were growing up?
Oh, man, I've always been Dead Kennedys fan. And, to work with DH, I mean, the guy's a legend. He was in the band since the beginning. He was also in Chili Peppers before Chad. I was actually hanging out with Chad last night.
Oh, wow.
But he's, someone that I've always just looked up to, and was introduced to him through my buddy Steve. And we sat down to have coffee together, and I just told him about what I was looking to do, and he was just really excited. He goes, "I'm in, man. This sounds so cool." And he came in, and he just was like the perfect guy for it. Like, I gave him the lyrics and the parts, and he just went over it. He tweaked a few things, and he was just like, "Yeah."
Wow.
Right when he recorded it, I was like, "I'm so happy that I picked DH to work with."
And now, when he was obviously this is your song, so when he came in, did you kind of tell him how you wanted him to play, or did you just kind of let him come and do his thing?
I mean, I had the parts, how I had them, and we went over them together. But then it's DH, man. He's got his own style.
Yeah.
It's like he does his thing with the guidelines that I gave him. But yeah, you just let him go off and kill it.
I mean that's to me kind of like the best way to create, be creative in the studio. And I was curious, when you go in the studio, do you kind of record the old school way where like everybody's in the room together, or does everybody kind of record their parts separately?
No, man. With this one, I was really, really cool. Like we did it at Sunset Sound in LA, which is like a great studio, and it was fun. Like I had, Robin come in, and I played bass with him while he laid down his drums, and then I did bass, and then right after that, we did vocals. But then I had like 20 of my friends just come in and bought him a case of beer, and I was like, "Hey, we're gonna do gang vocals on this chorus and stuff," and everyone just had a real good time. And then we we tracked the guitars a day later after at another studio.
Well, I always love to ask guys. You're obviously, as you mentioned, a bass player. I was curious. Talk a little bit about when you were coming up. Why did you choose the bass as your instrument?
Oh man, I don't know. I think actually I do know. It's kind of a weird story, but I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I was in high school, and I got this misaddressed musician's friend catalog that came to my parents' house, and it was supposed to go to my neighbor down the street, and I was looking through it, and I saw this thing that was a bass, and I didn't even really know what a bass was. I thought it looked super cool, and my birthday was in like 2 weeks, and I said to my parents, I was like, oh man, I really want this. It was like this Ibanez. It was like, I think $100, $200, something like that. And they're like, oh, you're never going to play it. And I was like, no, I promise I will. And they were like, okay. And then they created a monster because, they were super supportive. They got it for me, and then I just became obsessed. I started playing it all the time, and then it became my career. So it's kind of funny how that happened.
And do you remember what was the first song you learned to play?
Oh man, first song. I think it was a Nirvana song. It was either like Smells Like Teen Spirit or Breed or one of those.
Oh wow! And now, would you consider yourself to be a self-taught player, or did you take lessons?
A combination of both. When I was first starting out, I kind of taught myself, and I played in a few bands in high school, and had guitar players and other friends show me some stuff, and I then started getting more and more into it. Then I played in a jazz band at school, and I actually learned upright bass too. And then I went to college for music, and kind of really studied it there. But then I wound up dropping out like a month before graduating since one of my other bands, we got signed, and I was like, oh cool, let's go out and do it. So
because there's something to be said for there's something to be said for on one hand, you got one group of musicians that they're real technical and they can play everything just so and just very precise, and then there's other guys that are they know how to play their instrument, but they're a little sloppy. They have their own kind of style. To me, that's a little more rock and roll. But because if you play everything just it sounds we're technically precise. That's really not my cup of tea. But it's important to be able to play your instrument.
Same way, man. I definitely have respect for the guys who can do that, and like the whole virtuoso thing, but that's definitely not me. I mean, I appreciate like knowing how to do that kind of stuff. It's really cool, but to me it's just play a great song, man, and get like a cool sound out of your instrument, and if you can sound good and write something that someone wants to dance to or rock out to, you've done your job.
I mean it's all about being creative musically. I mean, it's if it sounds good. I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, you look at a guy like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he's a guitar virtuoso, and most people are amazed to learn the guy can't read a lick of music, but look at what he's laid down.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I'm that way too. Like I guess a while ago I could read music. Now I couldn't, to save my life. I've been done it forever.
Yeah. And I was curious, as far as the guys, that inspired you, bass players when you were growing up, who are some of your heroes?
Oh, man, so many. I mean, actually, it was really cool. One of my heroes, I got to work with that song, Let's Go, Harley Flanagan. He was, like, in high school. It was, like, I love the chromatics. I love the whole, raw, hardcore punk thing.
Yeah.
And, to work with him on my last song was just like, holy shit, this is incredible. So he was definitely one of my big influences. Flea from the Peppers is, big influence. Jocko, Pistorius, bunch of guys, man.
And now, another one of my favorites has always been like Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick. He plays what's called, I guess, he kind of created a 12-string bass. I was curious, have you ever played anything like that?
No, man, I've never checked those out. I played an 8-string bass once, which was pretty cool and hard to play, but 12-string, I don't know. It's like a tree trunk neck. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. And so as we were saying at the top of the interview, Revolution comes out August 25th, and I really urge people to check that out. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people before we wrap this up tonight, Chris?
Please go to my crowd pack, go to my website. All the information's there. Donate. It's going to a great cause. You're going to benefit education, healthcare, and equal rights. You're going to get an awesome song, features DH, punk legend from Dead Kennedys. I also have really, really cool official Revolution t-shirts, which are made by Fathom Clothing if you donate 30 or more. And there's different designs, too. You can go on Fathom's site and check them out. I got one with a raven and a flag, one with like a fist busting through a flag with a snake, and then there's another one with Trump as like a pig and the world behind it. It's pretty cool. I was wearing that yesterday.
I have a feeling you're going to be selling a lot of those, but now let me ask you two more questions before we wrap this. When we were trying to set up the interview, I was originally going to do it yesterday, but then I was told that you were shooting a video. So are we to assume that was for the single? There's going to be a video for it?
Oh, actually, earlier I was in New York City. All the protests were going on outside Trump Tower and Columbus Circle and stuff. So I went in there to capture some video and talk to some people and kind of spread the message. And then after that, I caught a really cool concert last night. So it's good, man. Just trying to get out there and spread the word and let everyone know, what we're trying to do.
Oh, that's cool. And very last question for you is, I always like to ask people, like, when you go back, a lot of people these days don't even know what a record is, but is there an album or a CD in your collection of music that you can kind of point to and say, that's the one album still to this day in my collection that really, still, that I can point to and say, that's why I do what I do, or, that's the one album that really inspired me?
Oh, man, that's really tough. I don't know if it was just one
or even
record. It's a combination of a lot of different records. I mean, I love the Chromax, I love Sublime, I love Peppers, I love Stone Temple. It's like so many different bands and different sounds. I don't think it would be fair for me to pick just one.
Well, I love to hear that from a guy like you, because I think the more like you're talking to a guy that I really love metal music, but at the same time, I have an appreciation for everything from Aerosmith to Tom Petty and the Eagles. To me, if it sounds good and it's good music, it doesn't really matter. So I think even as a songwriter, the more different types of music you listen to, it makes you to be a better songwriter, performer.
Oh, of course. I mean, not that I sit around listening to it all the time, but country music, like, you check out some of their lyrics and their songwriting, it's like some of the best stuff, like, from a writing standpoint.
Yeah, well, I mean,
pop music too. It's like the writing is so good. So I'm with you, man. Like, I listen to everything that's just a good song. Yeah,
I mean that's part of the reason. You talk about country music. That's part of the reason a lot of these, especially these '80s rock guys, are moving to Nashville, Tennessee. It's really become the rock capital of the world. They call it Music City, and a lot of these guys go and they write with some of the country writers, and that's really the biggest thing that's going on right now in music.
Totally, and I see a lot of rock guys too. Like, one of my favorite bands right now is the band Ghost. I don't know if you've checked them out.
Oh yeah.
And their last record, they worked with a pop producer who does all diva kind of pop stuff. Yeah. But because of his pop knowledge and writing, it's like that band had such a powerful, cool sound on their last record.
Yeah, well, Chris, once again, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to me today. It's been a real pleasure, and please don't ever change, man, because every time I talk to you, I'm just impressed with everything you have to say and do, because you really are such a diverse artist. And for any of these fools going on Facebook or whatever telling you, yelling you about giving your honest, heartfelt opinion, well, you have every right to do that. I don't think anybody has a right to try to shut you down, because we all have something called free speech, and that's the world that we should be living in. Everybody has a right to disagree, but like we were saying earlier, doesn't give you a right to go out and hurt anybody or get violent.
So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that, and definitely, man. Like, everyone has their own voice. It's up to you what you want to make your life and the world around you. So you can be part of the problem or part of the solution and be the change.
Yeah.
And if you can, we would appreciate your support, because it is going to a good place, and we will help make that change.
And before I let you go, Chris, I just want to urge people to please go out and support our friend Chris Clemence August 25th when a single Revolution comes out. Like we've been saying all throughout this interview, Chris is not just a very talented singer, songwriter, musician, but he's being part of a solution. He's not just a guy complaining like so many others. He's doing something, and I urge you all to follow his lead. You know, don't just complain. Do something. If you have a problem or something you're not happy with in the world, you know, do something. So great message you're sending out there, Chris. Take care, my friend, and I'll be sure to let Shauna know when the interview goes up. But thanks so much, and please keep in touch. Anytime you have anything to promote, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you promote whatever you got going on.
Thanks so much, man. You have a good night.
Okay, you too, my friend. Bye-bye.